Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside Scoop. I'm Mike DeCosmo. I'll be hosting tonight since Rick Morelli isn't with us. Tonight, people, we should have a real good show. We have with us former Luzerne County Commissioner Stephen Urban, who's now part of the transition or the new county council. As you all know, we've gone to a new form of government. Mr. Urban is the only person on the new county council seeing it from both sides. So we should gain a real nice perspective as to how it's going so far compared to where we were. And as always, my co-host, Dr. David Sosar, is on the panel with me. And Stephen, it's great to have you here. I don't know if I should call you councilman now, but
Steve. A lot of people call me Steve.
After all the years as commissioner, it's hard to recognize you as a councilman. But to get right to the chase, Steve, you know what's happened, of course, this past week. When you were county commissioner, you left a new council with a budget that included no tax hike.
That's right.
We've gotten the information, I guess, with and there doesn't appear to be a clear minority in our new council at this point. It seems a lot of people are constantly changing positions, but the fact is, Luzerne County is going to be faced with a tax increase. I know you voted against it. How is this going to affect the county, and how is this different from the budget, I guess, that the county commissioners handed to the new council?
Well, the county commissioners had an obligation under the charter to pass the budget for the new council that came in, and we basically passed a $121 million budget with no tax increase. Last year we received, I think, $121,680,000 in revenue. And so the budget we passed was pretty close to the revenue that we received, with an exception. We included a little over $2 million of additional revenue in the budget from a TIF, a taxpayer incremental financing plan. There was a roadway network that was put into the Arena Hub area up along Highland Park Boulevard. This issue was passed in 1998, and that project right now is overfunded. There's about $4 million of additional money in that project. As far as I'm concerned, there's $2 million that's owed to Luzerne County, and as of today, the county should be going over to the Luzerne County Redevelopment Authority and asking for their $2 million back. The road network was put in. All of the bills are paid. There was an obligation for the TIF, the taxpayer incremental financing, to pay 20% cost share for the Cole Street Road in Wilkes-Barre. Now, Wilkes-Barre never contributed a nickel to the TIF project, but the commissioners at the time, Crossan, Jones, and Makowski, voted for the TIF along with the school district and Wilkes-Barre Township, and they agreed to pay 20% cost share toward this road project. Now, the road project was $11.8 million, and in the documents I looked at, the city already drew down $1.5 million, so they're owed about $900,000. So I said, put the $900 in escrow. There's $4 million there. The school district owes another $1 million, so there's $5 million. I said, so there's $4 million. Split the $4 up, $2 for the school district and $2 for the county, and there's your $2 million. Nobody wants to go after that money. It's sitting there, and it belongs to the taxpayers. It's not money that came from community development. It's money that was generated from tax collections. All of the buildings, the Walmarts and all the stores around the Walmart area would pay their taxes, and those taxes would then not come into the county treasury, but then would go over to the redevelopment authority to pay back the loan that was taken out for the TIF project, and the loan's paid back.
Speaking of overfunding, Steve, just before I throw it over to Dave, I know one of the areas that people are talking about, in fact, our own Rick Morelli wrote a letter to the editor of Standard Speaker yesterday and pointed out about 7 or 8 different areas where possibly we could balance the budget without the tax increase. And one of the areas he talked about was the money we still had in the bond fund. Yes. Any possibility, or was there a lot of discussion about using a portion of that?
There was. You can use bond money to defease the bonds if you don't, defease it, sure, and it's been done in the past. I mean, Mr. Pobula did it when he was the budget officer in the county, and it could be done if people want to do that. If it's excess bond money, I think the only requirement is you have to use it to pay back the bond issue it was borrowed from. Another issue is monetization. You know, when Mr. Pobula quit on us about a little over a year ago, we left us with a budget hole. We had put the Valley Crest sale, we had a sales agreement with the Salvation Army, and when the Plains Township would not allow the Salvation Army some zoning to use the facility, and the Salvation Army pulled out, we had a budget hole to fill, and what we did is we monetized. By monetizing, we filled our budget hole. So monetization, I think, is another thing that you can do, and that is selling your your unpaid taxes to a bank or someone, and you maybe get 95, 96 cents on a dollar. You get your money up front, and then as the money's collected through the tax claim office, it's paid back to the bank. So that's another way of doing it.
Steve, one of the things that you mentioned before with these monies that are out there, on paper they're there. I just like the audience to be aware and to be clear on it. What course of actions? Is it just a normal request? Is it legal action that you have to pursue? What do you have to do to get a hold of those different monies that literally, as you just mentioned, could have amounted to $5 million?
Well,
Because-
monetization, all the council has to do is vote on it. I mean, when we served as commissioners, we just voted to monetize, and we went out and monetized, and the banks came in, looked at the receivables that were owed to the county, came up with a figure on a percentage of what they were going to pay us, like 95, 96%. The more current the receivables are, the more you're going to get as far as proceeds.
right.
And then you let them come in, and about a month and a half, they give you your money, and you have it in the general fund. The other one, the TIF that I talked about,
Right.
that money is actually sitting in bank accounts at the Luzerne County Redevelopment Authority. And, you know, the commissioners appoint and now council appoints the 5 members to the Redevelopment Authority. So I think it's a matter of sitting down with the city of Wilkes-Barre, with the school district, and with the Redevelopment Authority, and saying, okay, Wilkes-Barre's owed another $900,000, put that money aside. That's going to cover their 20% cost share. Now we're going to split the rest up, because
Correct.
there's no more projects.
Right. In regards to that, though, too, some of the debt that, and certainly Luzerne County has a lot of debt. If I remember correctly, some of the money from those projects is to go towards, and the monetization was to go towards some of the debt payment as well.
No, well, the debt payment's there, and the real reason why the debt payment is there is because the county, for about a 10-year period, spent more on an annual
Right.
basis than it brought in taxes, because the county refused to reassess. The former commissioners refused to reassess. That's why West Hazelton was in the situation it was in. 30 Mills was not bringing in enough revenue to pay the annual bills, so they had to go to distress status. The city of Nanticoke went to distress status. You know, when Tom Makowski and I made a decision to reassess, it was a hard decision to swallow, but we realized you had to get your tax base squared away. The legislature only allows us really one source of revenue in the county, big source of revenue, and that's revenue from property taxes. And if your tax base is not current, if your houses are valued so low that it's not generating any revenue to pay your bills, the commissioners in the past resorted to borrowing money on an annual basis, $20, $30 million to pay salaries, to pay for the salaries of the people that are in the county right now. And so that's how the debt was piled up. I'd say about $250 million of debt was piled up over the years just to pay salaries on an annual basis.
And that does lead to another question that I have, because this has become one of the more controversial issues. Watching last night, as I watched the news, everybody was covering the tremendous onslaught of attendees at your meeting.
Sure.
Because, again, there's a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people watching out here tonight, who always are concerned about when they hear the term layoffs as well, okay? Under the original plan, 106. Under the new budget, 56. If you could, please, and you know, I know our time is limited here, but if you could just maybe give us a little bit of direction. How did it get to the 56? There's been talk that unions were not given time as rank and file to talk about givebacks or renegotiate or anything like that. And that's become kind of I think, part of the controversy in this new budget.
Well, I think the unions were asked to give back, and according to Mr. Babula, the unions refused to give back anything.
Okay.
There are 2 collective bargaining agreements that are up right now. One of them is one of the larger ones, and that's the ASME contract that covers the court employees, residual employees, and they have binding arbitration. They refused to negotiate in good faith with the commissioners, and matter of fact, they told us verbally in December that they were going to take us to arbitration. Now, they held off because they said that maybe they can get a better deal with the new council. Well, it seems like they've already got the new council bluffed in seeing things their way. Keep us on board, and then once you vote for a tax increase, we'll come back at you and go to binding arbitration and make you pay more. And so you've got to be careful. I mean, some of these council members last week, I was disappointed, gave direction to Mr. Babula to start putting together an $118 million budget and with no tax increase. And then I was surprised to see last night that two of them, Elaine Curry and Harry Haas, switched their vote already. I mean, last week they said, yep, I'm for no tax increase, $118 million. And last night it was a 2% tax increase with a $121 million budget. It just doesn't make sense that what happened between Thursday, where we spent a few hours at a meeting, and yesterday. I mean, just because some people come in the audience, you shouldn't choke. We had hundreds of people at the reassessment meeting, and Marianne Petrella and I were determined to follow through with reassessment because it was the only way to fix Luzerne County government and to make it financially healthy again. There's another union contract that's up, and that's the detectives. We sat down with the detectives. The detectives have a formula in there for an annual longevity increase. It is something like 0.5% of your base pay times the number of years of service. So if your base pay is $80,000, 0.5% of that times 20 years of service comes out to about $8,000 a year. $8,000 a year longevity bonus that we're paying to some of the detectives. They refused to sit down and take it out. They said, we'll do it for new employees, but we don't want to lose any of these benefits. And that's, we negotiated with them. And again, they can go back to binding arbitration also. They haven't yet. But that's another group that's contract is expired. I don't know why we need 10 detectives in the county either. One of the detectives is there for grant. It was grant funded. And there was an agreement that when that grant was finished in 3 months, that individual would leave. We would lay off that person because it was only a 3-year position. Now they want to keep them on full time. I think the DA needs to get a handle on her office. When people come in and say, I'm only making $21,000 a year, you're making $21,000 a year in pay. You're getting about a $13,000 to $14,000 a year health care benefit package that you contribute very little to. You're getting 14% of your base pay, goes into the retirement fund right now because that's the contribution that we have to give for every employee to keep the retirement fund actuarially sound. We have something like 800 people drawing county retirement right now. When I first became a commissioner, there was only 200. So the rolls have grown of retirees, and so the fund has to be shored up every year by the taxpayers. These are the benefits that the employees they take for granted.
Yeah, you're right, Steve, and as you know, I mean, especially with part-time employees being covered by health insurance, those days are pretty much gone.
No, not in the DAs. You have part-time assistant DAs, and you've got part-time assistant public defenders who get full-time health care benefits.
Yeah.
And they're not contributing, or they're contributing very little. Again, if you're part-time, you should be paying at least half, or you shouldn't have them at all.
You won't get too many arguments from the people around here, but
And those things are still in the budget. And, you know, there's one other issue, and that's the court. And if you go to Monroe County, every judge has a secretary or administrative assistant and a law clerk. The law clerk is usually fresh out of college, somebody that graduated from law school, getting their education, and also they're full of knowledge and a lot of energy. You go to Luzerne County, the judge has an administrative assistant making close to $50,000, 2 part-time law clerks for the most part that get health benefits. A lot of them are practicing attorneys in the private sector. And until this year, they also had a TIF staff. You know, so they had 4 people on staff. Now, the state legislature only gives us $61,000 per judge. The county has to make up the difference, which is about $300,000 plus for the judge's staff. Now, how could one county do it with a part-time law clerk or somebody out of school, 2 people, and ours have to have 4? Doesn't make any sense, and our judge thinks he could sue us over that. I hope this council is not intimidated, and I hope the courts don't end up running the county. You know, the courts ran the county for a long time. You know, and this is what I think brought about the scandal in this county. The courts were dictating this detention center that the county was going to use as detention center. Commissioners backed off and let the courts tell them whatever they wanted to, or they threatened to sue them, and the commissioners didn't want to take a stand, and they ran the county. So I think this council is heading down the wrong track a lot of the members, and they're letting the judges push them around. They're the legislative body.
Let's take a break here. We'll talk more about this in our second segment. We'll be talking about the appointment of the new county manager, probably the single most important position here in Luzerne County. We'll be back with you after a short break. Welcome back to our final segment of the Inside Scoop this evening. Again, we have Council-elect former Commissioner Steve Urban with us. Steve, before the break, we were talking pretty much about the transition into the County Council. To me, the single most important decision which the Council has had to make so far has been the appointment of the manager. A national search was done. You've decided on the candidate. How do you feel about the process and the decision that was finally made?
Well, I don't think the process was that fair, to tell you the truth. I applied. I didn't even get an interview. Not even an interview. And I know other people in the county that applied and didn't get interviews. So I don't know who was controlling the process. I didn't participate in the process since I applied. My son didn't participate in the process because we would have been conflicted out. I was a little put back when I saw the credentials of the manager coming in. He has 2 degrees in political science, nothing as far as budget and finance. He's coming out of California. I think his current position, he's sort of like an assistant budget officer. He was a manager in one county for 2 years, an assistant manager, a deputy, I think, prior to that in the county that he's at now. And now he's currently a budget analyst. Don't know much about him, only met him briefly. He came in the night that they took the vote, came around and said hello, and he flew out the next day. I think he met with some of the employees. As far as the budget goes, he's not involved in the process. I don't think he's coming on board till the 21st of February. The council has until the 16th, I believe, or the 15th or 15th to pass the budget. So whatever budget is passed, he's going to have to live with. But don't know much about him. People have asked me on the street, we couldn't find anybody in Luzerne County. We can't find anybody in Pennsylvania to run the county. I say this, we want to know why our kids leave the area. This is an opportunity that somebody in this county or the state should have had, in my opinion, not somebody from California.
I would have thought, and you can give us a better idea right now. You have an interim manager, Mr. Prabula, and you have a new manager appointed, Mr. Lawton. Were either of the gentlemen, I know Mr. Prabula was around, I've read in the paper that there were comments made by him about the budget. Mr. Lawton, while I know he was going to come in after the budget is passed now, was there anything from his perspective, this is what I would do, here's some comments, here's some suggestions, I'm familiar with such and such from my past experiences?
No, we didn't hear anything from him. Like I said, all I know is he came around the night that the vote was taken, where he received 9 affirmative votes and 2 abstentions, and said hello to people briefly and left. He hasn't said anything about the budget. I saw one comment in the newspaper, I think it was the Times Leader, where he said that I'm not involved in the budget process. I won't be here until after it's passed, and I don't think anybody's heard from him since.
Well, it's going to be important because he's going to have to implement that budget nonetheless, yes. And so I would have hoped that there was at least some kind of input, comments, etc. Your take on Mr. Prabula as your interim manager right now, and everything that you need to have an interim manager, sure. And someone to direct the county. Your views and comments so far as you've seen this unfold?
Well, Mr. Prabula worked for the commissioners for about 2.5 years, right. And then he quit. I don't think the applicant pool of people that applied for an interim job was big. I think Mr. Prabula got the job because no one else there was qualified. I don't think Mr. Prabula is qualified to run the county. He hasn't made any real tough decisions. I think he hired the sheriff and kept him in place part-time and left the row officers, Carol Lee Medico and Dottie, in charge of their offices. He's basically a caretaker. I think he was more interested in the budget. I think what he's really after is the budget officer's job, the job that he quit and walked away from us. And I won't confirm him for that job. I can say that right now. I didn't vote for him as an interim manager. Mr. Babula last year told us we shouldn't put Valley Crest in the budget. We did because it was our decision. It was a budget we had to live with. And he walked away. We came up a little short, but what we ended up doing was monetizing, and we came up with the money to pay our bills at the end of the year. And so, you know,
But in there lies the difference.
there lies the difference.
And, you know, as county commissioners, it was your responsibility to make the decisions and have somebody execute them in past times. And now it's the county manager's responsibility to make those tough decisions and expect others to carry them on out.
Correct.
Let me ask a different kind of question at this point, because again, there was another letter in the newspaper today by Carolee Medico, who was also suggesting a number of things that might be done with budgets in the future, and even this budget right now. And they deal with the e-filing and so forth. And for some of our listeners, this is some of the new ways of paying your bills online, to be it by credit, be it by direct deposit from my checking account to your checking account in the county. Just a touch of the button on the computer, and maybe this will save and reduce work staff. Maybe this will save time and energy and keep accounting services. I know, Mike, you have some views on that as well from the tax collector. Any possibilities of looking at that for future years and expanding what we have right now in the county?
I think we can look at it, but you know, when you come to tax collectors, I've said in the past that I didn't want to see the tax collectors go. I think it's important that we have somebody local that we can come and pay our taxes to. They don't really make a lot of money. They have pretty good hours. I mean, particularly during the rebate period. You know, that's when a lot of the taxes are collected, during that rebate period. They're timely. I know I go to a tax collector's house in the property that I own up in Mountaintop. I go to the house and pay the lady in person, or put it in a mailbox on her porch, and I get my bill back if I leave a check there. I think it's a convenience, and it's good. It's healthy to have that. As far as Carolee goes, Carolee has in the past really refused to go along with the commissioners and reduce her budget. She always seems to fight for her people in the office, and that's good to fight for your people, but if you look at her office, she's there, she has a deputy, and she has an office manager. But what, under home rule, there is no more separate pathonetary. There's a judicial records office. She falls under that office. She still has two people, herself and two other people. I believe her office manager can run the office by himself and report directly to that head of judicial records. I don't see anybody jumping up when I go into her office and say, "Can I help you?" That's one thing you don't see at the county. You know, is people jumping up at the counter saying, "Can I help you?" with that big smile on your face. They sort of sitting there like this. You come in and like sometimes you're bothering them, and that's not the way it should be. And I hope that the manager focuses on that. You know.
Well, and again, getting back, and you touched on it, Stephen, of course, I have to make my pitch for the tax collectors throughout Luzerne County, but again, I think that's what's missing in a lot of county government, that personal touch.
Sure.
You know, I could tell you in Hazel Township, but we have over 10,000 taxable properties. I'll further tell you about a third of the people come to my office to pay their tax bills, and I'll further tell you about a third of that third still paying cash.
Sure.
And I could tell you of the cash payers, 90% of them are senior citizens who still don't trust the banks, who lived through the Depression, but they look for other services. You know, they want us to help them, to let them know, to make sure they're getting any homestead exclusions that may be available, or how do they go about getting a property tax rebate. And it's one of those face-to-face services that we still get through the county. And you know, I know you've always been a friend of the tax collectors and that type of service, Steve. But I just think it's so important. You know, in tough budget times, you know, that we don't lose sight. And I know you probably spent as much time down the first district as anyone, but you know, down here we've always felt slighted by the county. You know, the county down here, Hazel Township, and pretty much the whole area, Dave, voted 2-1 against the change of government.
That's right.
You know, we came out very strongly about it, thinking that, boy, our services will be cut even further now. And you know, this is just one example where, again, we could still feel part of county government. But unfortunately, we're getting short on time, Steve. Up to you with some concluding comments.
Call any county office tomorrow and see if you get an answering machine or a person. You should get a person. If the county employees are really providing the service that they say they are, they would pick up that phone and say, "How can I help you?" and help you, walk you through a problem. I mean, I'm very disappointed in the answering systems that are in the county. The offices don't pick up the phones, they don't return your calls, and I went into one office when tax claim was still being run by the county, and somebody called me and said, I kept on calling the phone and nobody answers it. And I went in there and the phone was actually unplugged. It was unplugged. and when I questioned the person in there, they said, oh, it must have fell out. Well, you got to squeeze that clip and pull it out. So you know, with that said, you know, I think we can make some reductions in the county, and I'm not going to vote for a tax increase. I think this is the wrong time. You know, we have the president talking about giving people, you know, that reduction in their Social Security, so they have a couple extra bucks in their paycheck. You know, and now here the county is taking those couple dollars out of people's pockets. You know, we want to stimulate this economy, make this economy grow. We do that by keeping money in people's pockets. This is going to hurt business too. I mean, 2% may not sound like a lot, but maybe to a business, it's the difference between staying in business or expanding and hiring an extra person, or, you know, not expanding. So I hope my fellow councilmen and women think about that.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us.
Thank you.
You've certainly always had the courage of your convictions, and that's why I think your political success has been so great through the years. And I'm only very proud on a personal note, Dave. This is the first time we've had Steve on the show as a Democrat, so I like him more than ever this evening. But
and the public did too, because we were the top vote getter last year in the Democratic primary and the top Democratic voter in the general election. So I want to thank all the public for that. Thank you very much.
You do your job, you can't fool the public. Thank you once again for joining in Inside Scoop. We'll see you in 2 weeks.